everybody. Let's talk about string gauges today. Most guitar players know that strings come in like lights, mediums, medium light, extra light, medium, heavy gauge. There's different gauges of strings you can buy. If you're new to 12 string, you may be wondering about how this applies to the 12 string. Because of the massive string tension a standard 12 string set has on the guitar, upwards of 220 pounds, string gauge makes a huge difference, way more than it does on 6-string guitar. It affects the tone, the touch, the sustain, how hard you can hit the instrument. There's a lot of factors that come into it. We're just going to talk about just a few of those today. Most 12 strings come from the manufacturer with a standard light set, which generally is a 10 to a 42. What do I mean by a 10 and a 42? That's kind of slang for 10 hundredths of an inch, right? So it's like 0.010, and that is the diameter of the string. The bigger that number is, the wider the string is at the diameter, and that increased thickness increases the mass of the string being brought up to tension at pitch, and that increases the tension and the feel of the string as far as how tight the string feels. The lighter, the lower that number is, then the more flexible the string is. That flexibility makes a huge difference in how you approach the instrument, and depending on the style you play, the role that the 12 string is going to play in your performance and your recording, or and just the general feel of the instrument. 12 strings is going to range from the lightest sets that I have played go down to about a 9. There are some manufacturers that make them even thinner than that. A 9 to about a 42. Ernie Ball makes a set that I use for guitars that I tune either a half step down or keep at concert pitch. For guitars that I tune down, I usually go to an 11 or a 12, and the 11 to 46 or 11 to 52 set. This guitar has the Martin, what's the name of the flexible core strings on it, which is an interesting compromise. It has a really light set at the top here. It goes to like a 10 up on the top end, but it goes down to a 52. So it's sort of a part of the strings are heavier than a standard light set, and the others are part of a regular light set. What this allows me to do is I can gives me a real sparkly, flexible high end. But because the lower strings are heavier, I can rip in. So if I really want to get kind of athletic and really rip into the strings, there's enough mass there to allow me to do that, and enough string tension to be resistant to that. If your strings are too floppy, it actually limits the dynamic range because you can't dig into the strings as physically as you can. Although they're easier to play, they just will kind of flop and just kind of pop, 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 instead of giving you a good strong tone when you play hard on them. That said, if you go to a heavier string, I have played guitars that I tuned down to like a C sharp or a C, and I might go to a medium set, which is going to be like a 12 to a 52 or 54, or maybe a 13 to a 56. That's a really beefy set of strings. You would never want to tune a 12 string to concert pitch with those. It would kind of fold the guitar in half. That's a lot of string tension. But if you tune way down to get that low kind of baritone guitar sound like that Leo Kottke gets, you have to have a heavier string gauge so it doesn't become too floppy. It can actually make the strings harder to play because the strings that will bend from side to side as you're kind of muscling them into place, and can affect pitch. And goodness knows you have enough pitch problems on a 12 string as it is anyway. So having a string gauge that works for you for the type of stuff that you're playing. Now, I just played something that was kind of light and tinkly, and something that was kind of aggressive. And this is a set that's kind of a hybrid. Now let me go to a different guitar here and just kind of show you like a different approach on this. One consideration is the construction of your guitar. This Ovation 12 string is 45 years old. This is fairly delicate. It's already got a couple of stress cracks in the top that I want to preserve, and so I put the lightest gauge strings on this one that I can find. This one is a 9 to like a 42 set, and this is basically jangle because of the light gauge strings, but I'm not going to do anything really heavy and aggressive on this guitar. this one with the really light gauge strings. I'm going to be mostly playing this one for strummy kind of stuff. I'll probably use a light gauge finger pick or thumb pick, and so you see I sacrifice the bass response. I get a whole lot more high-end treble performance, which is going to then be more useful in a strummy kind of application of the guitar. So your string gauge that you pick depends on a lot of different factors. Your guitar, the age of your guitar, the construction, how heavily it's built, how heavily it's braced, whether you're going to be playing with finger picks, with flat picks, with your bare fingers. If you're going to be playing heavy, aggressive kind of stuff, whether you're playing solo or accompanying a vocal, if you're the primary instrument or a secondary instrument in a mix, a lot of different factors come into play there. Also, your string materials make a difference too. 80-20 brass or bronze, or your bronze wound, your Monel wrap. Oh, there's your coated strings like Elixir, and the material of the string makes a difference in the flexibility and the feel and the brightness. What kind of warmth or brightness you're wanting for your guitar to stand out in the mix. Also, on 12 strings, you notice when you get into the heavier end of things, the medium gauge, those strings, often the A string, the octave, you have your A string and then the octave above that. On most string sets, that octave is an unwound or a plain steel string. On some medium gauge sets, they put that in as a wound A string, which actually can be pretty useful if you're tuning way down. That prevents that steel string from becoming too floppy, and it helps prevent some intonation problems in the disparity between the diameter of the octaves on that A string set. So when you go down and have that wound octave, it does have a different feel and a different tone, a different sound, and it can be quite useful if you're tuning down. But if you don't find that very often on the string sets. I think the lightest string set that I know of that has the wound A string on it is your GHS white bronze strings, which is an interesting kind of set to play with. The string tensions on those are pretty interesting, different material, that white bronze, and it's kind of a fun set to play around with. So as you experiment with your strings, investigate all those different possibilities and see what you can come up with. You're going to find out that certain guitars sound better with certain brands, and depending on what you're using the guitar for. This one, I've got the Ernie Ball extra lights, which are a 9 to like a 42. So this is the lightest string I can usually find. Somebody makes a set with somebody told me I think it's an Oscar Stern, our listener here, said somebody makes a set with an 8 on the bottom here, maybe Labella, but those are pretty expensive strings. They're like $40 a set. I'm not, with all the guitars I've got, I don't put strings that expensive on there. The one behind me here, the Guild that I started out with, that one's got the Martin flexible core set, which goes it's like a 10 to a 52. The one next to it has got like just a standard Diodario, the light set, which is, I think it's a 10 to 46. So every 12 string in here has a different use. It's like a different wrench for a mechanic. They all have different things that I do with them. Some are for strummy stuff, some are for things involving open tunings, or some are for down tunings. So I approach it differently. So as you play around with your strings, try out different things and see what works best for you. And if you have a certain application, you may find that a certain brand of string is going to work better. And over time, you may end up, like me, accumulating multiple 12 strings that do different things, and you'll use those 12 strings for different techniques, different approaches, aggressive playing, light playing, ballads, rocky stuff with slide guitar. All of those things are factors that you can take into account. So anyway, that's a little conversation on string gauge. In the comments below, tell me what your favorite string gauge is. Maybe you have a certain brand, a certain gauge that you really like. Tell me why you like that. What is it about those that works for you and your guitar? String preferences are as individual as people's taste in pizza. You know, some people like pineapple on pizza. Some people go, bleh. So string gauges are the same way. So let me know. Leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, and share if you found any of this useful. And come back and visit the channel again. Always producing new content. Coming up on a new year, and share this out with the other folks there. And let's build this channel. Let's build up this 12-string community. And I'll go ahead and go now. Bye, everybody.